There we go. Well, bienvenue, welcome on this amazing day. You can tell it's an amazing day because the sun is perking over Hamish's shoulder. There you can see. There's a sunburst in the corner of Tiffany's window as well. And look, I'm, as ever, stuck inside the golden clock. But welcome to Property Matters, the first of our property live streams this week. Of course, don't forget, tomorrow we got Ipsy Kind of Magic. Then on Thursday, we have Property Quorum, and on Friday, we finish off with a bang on Cladding Matters. Great stuff. And I say to everyone, if you want to go back on previous ones, please go to the YouTube channel, which is Spilling the Proper Tea, forgive my pun. And if you go there, you will find a whole range of stuff to get your teeth into. I would say last week's Cladding Matters was a humdinger. Please do go and take a look at it. But today, I'm absolutely overjoyed to have Tiffany Fairbrother here, a woman who's very closely associated with the show, but also has lived experience of the topic that we're going to talk about, the property list. Now, I'm, as everybody knows, a clown prince, so I don't really know much about anything. So I'm going to ask the first question to Tiffany. But before that, Hamish, would you at least introduce the show and get us off the chops?
Right. Well, great to see you all. Now, the sad thing is the solstice. The solstice has passed us by. I hope you caught it. Maybe not at 4:41 on Sunday morning. However, the trouble is now we're getting all this glorious weather. The evenings are shortening. So isn't it great to be able to get out in the garden? And that's a bit of what we're speaking about in some ways, because so many people aren't in a position to be able to do that. They're queued up, waiting to find a place with a garden. They've had to join waiting lists for social housing, for council housing. And then what we've got, and this week is going to be full of it in all the podcasts that Gareth has actually mentioned, the MHCLG, the Ministry of Housing and Communities and all the rest of it, they're deciding they're going to improve things. And the trouble is, when people like that make announcements, it's really what the outcome is that they haven't actually understood. And we're in a perfect situation here. What we've got is a lot of pressure on HMOs, houses of multiple occupation. And where the heck does that fit in this? Well, the thing is, it's on a different list totally from the council or the social housing. Unfortunately, loads of money is being given to a company of our money, of course, it comes out of tax, to actually buy into houses of multiple occupation. So perfectly good houses are being bought up to be converted to HMOs, which do not suit families. So that is adding to whatever the challenges are. The best we hand over to Tiffany to be able to sort of explain the background even before these additional complications have been brought upon us.
Well, as ever, we have Tiffany Fairbrother, who's a lady who's lived through this experience, but more importantly, she's a keen study of both life and how it affects others. We've had other people on shows before now that she's been with and seen had to go through and bear the brunt of these things. So tell me, first of all, I'm going to be an animated idiot. You're going to have to educate me. What does being on the housing list actually mean from the point of view of how it makes people feel? And most importantly, when you're on that list, does it feel like it stretches out forever, or is there a realistic feeling that you're going to get somewhere?
So the biggest feeling, the first word that comes to mind when you say, how does it feel, is stress. That's the very first word that comes to mind. No, like as soon as you said that, stress. So in terms of length of time and as how long you're waiting, that's purely circumstantial for everybody. So when you apply for a council property, each council has bands of where people are put. So it's not a case of you apply, you're at the back of the list and everybody just moves forward. So everybody's put into a band depending on their individual circumstances. So they have band A, B, C, D, and some councils do have E as well, but that's it primarily band A to D. So A is your highest band for the people that are in the most urgent need of properties. So homeless people, people with serious overcrowding, emergency safeguarding concerns, medical needs that they need to move out of their house, things like that. The people at the very top that are in the most urgent need.
People with black mold, for instance.
Say again.
People with black mold, for instance.
Yes, yeah, things like that. You have band B is your high priority, so they do have significant need for housing, but not quite as much as those in band A. Moderate overcrowding, welfare, or medical issues, but aren't quite in that A category. C is your general housing needs that they do need to move at some point, but they could potentially stay where they are for the time being. And then the band D is the lowest priority, so the people that are eligible for applying for council housing, but have no real significant need to move, but they can be put on the list. So obviously, depending on where you are on these in these bands, will purely depend on how long you waited. So in my situation, for example, I was put in before I moved into this property. I was put into band A because I was classed as homeless. And even then, we were classed as homeless, but we still were waiting. I think we were on the list for 6 months before we got property.
Okay.
And that was band A.
Well, I've got some subsequent questions to that. First of all, what happens to people while they're stuck waiting in that sort of weird waiting room scenario? I mean, what happens?
So take band A, for example, and like my situation, we were classed as homeless. We were put into temporary accommodation. So we were put into a bed and breakfast for 6 months while we were on the list. Again, it depends on people's individual circumstances. Some people will be put into temporary accommodation. Some people will be staying with families. Some people will be just told to stay where they are while they're on the list until they've found a more suitable accommodation. So again, it all depends on certain circumstances of individual people. Like I said, it's not a one size fits all. You apply, you then put at the back of the queue, and everything moves forward. It's not like that.
So, okay, how does temporary accommodation affect families, children, and even mental health?
Oh, it's horrendous. I've known people, like I said, my situation, I was put into a room in a bed and breakfast.
Right.
So there was me and my daughter, who was 3 at the time. So we were in one room, 2 beds. We had a tiny little fridge and a microwave, and that was it. I've known families that have been put in hotel rooms for a family of 5 put into one single hotel room for 12 months.
And are these hotel rooms salubrious? Are they beautifully?
They're your bog standard hotel rooms, like your bog standard Premier Inn, Travelodge hotel rooms.
So they're not
They're not specifically designed to be temporary accommodation.
Right.
They're not specifically designed to be lived in for an extended length of time. They are your bog standard hotel rooms.
So these people who seem to put out that people are being taken and thrust into these 5-star accommodations.
Oh no, not at all. No.
All
no,
right.
like I said, it is your bog standard where somebody would stay for 1 or 2 nights, and they're put in there for 12 months plus.
Good Lord. So are councils being honest enough about people's chances of being housed?
Oh yeah, depending on the council, but my specific council, I would say so. Yeah, so some are, some aren't.
What's your council?
I think.
Can we give them a positive shout out then?
Yeah, so I'm with Stoke-on-Trent City Council, and I do have to say, so before I found myself homeless, I'd never had any dealings with the council before.
Right.
But I do have to say, the second I was made homeless, they were nothing but fantastic.
Oh, wow.
They made us so the morning I was made homeless, I called them. They'd already known my situation anyway. They knew I was becoming homeless. They said, the day you made homeless, give us a call, which I did. They said we would give you a call by, I think it was about 6 p.m, telling you where you need to go. I think I got the phone call at about 4 p.m. saying that they'd found me the place in the bed and breakfast. And so I went there. They kept me up to date with everything, told me how long I'd have to wait. They even gave me a preference of 3 areas within the city that I would prefer to live.
Wow.
So they let me do that. They did say that there was no guarantee, but they did give me 3 preferences of areas within the city that I would prefer to live.
And you appreciated the realism rather than the kind of sky.
Absolutely. I know some councils can be, you're here, you're just going to have to stay there, and we'll let you know when something's available. And that can be years and years and years, especially if you're in like Band C, Band D, you could be waiting 5+ years for accommodation, because obviously everything can be moved down. So if somebody comes homeless, they're put in Band A, so everybody else gets pushed down a little bit because they're not in as much need. So there's some people that can be waiting, like I said, 5+ years for properties and just field stock. But yeah, my council, I've never been able to fault my council. They were straight with me from the start. This is what we do for you. This is how we're going to help you. I know, obviously, in some cases, it's not the same for all councils.
Okay, one more question before I start talking about Right to Buy.
Yeah.
Do you think the system overall is overwhelmed because there are too many applicants and too few homes?
Yeah. That's exactly what it is. There is so many applicants for council housing. There's more applicants for council housing at the minute than I think there ever has been, because of being forced out of private accommodation, either due to issues or rent arrears or not being able to buy a house, things like that. Right. And then there isn't enough housing stock for council houses anymore, because the councils can't afford them. There is the issues that obviously there is less council houses now because of things like Right to Buy, and there is significantly more people on the list than there is houses.
Hamish, I was always in favour of Right to Buy, because I think you want to elevate your position in the world. But the trouble is, it makes no sense without them replacing stock, does it?
Oh, absolutely. And this was, unfortunately, and I think councils, I think it does actually sort of reflect that councils, in many respects, Tiffany sort of almost pointed a finger to it. There are some councils that you're just really a number. And we noticed this when we're actually trying to get local searches, for example. Right. Yeah. Because I've just found the other day that we've got to wait 12 weeks to get building regulations back. How on earth can that happen this day and age? But you see, this is the absurdity of it, because councils do vary so much. And you do have the councils that care. And you get the councils who would like to care, but because of the pressures put upon them, because what is actually happening, and it's the system. People are going to work the system the best way that actually suits them. What we have, there are a lot of private landlords are being pushed out because they can't afford to maintain it. Right. A number of landlords, we'll be speaking about this next week, I think, on one of our podcasts, that some of these landlords have said, well, I can't handle this now. I need to hand it over. A letting agent will sort it out. And the letting agent actually, unfortunately, does not enable the same kind of relationship that a private landlord would actually have. So it puts pressure on. But the other thing, adding to the pressures, that we haven't been building enough stock. The population is increasing, and houses are being diverted for other uses. If somebody's trying to sell a 3-bedroom house or make it a 4-bedroom house, because that would be really good, really cool for a big family to be able to get hold of one of those. But the rent on that is impossible. I doubt if there's a council in the country that has a 4-bedroom house that's likely to become available within the next 2 to 3 years. It will be a chance of a lifetime for somebody. Wow. So we have this, but what actually happens, all of a sudden, that 4-bedroom house could become, because the landlord can't sell it at the right going, he can't afford to keep it. He's trying to sell it. Flashing along comes somebody, buys that house and changes it into an HMO, which can have 6 people in it, 6 single people, or a few partners, not family accommodation. So there's houses being pulled out. So we're losing that kind of stock as well. So we haven't built the houses. We're losing some of the stock that has been built. And then, of course, I think the biggest comment that Tiffany actually said, it's the stress factor, because all of this is causing major, major stress. And we just have to feel for those people and just sort of say that, what can you do about it? I mean, I know I have family members who've been through similar type situation. They
But
have
some
resolved.
might say that this is state-sponsored cruelty to be put on a list without giving a hope or a timescale, that you're just waiting and hoping that somehow your life is going to magically change. That
No, I
seems,
think
it seems
it-
cruel and unusual.
I think it's a saddening fact, a fact of today, because the governments keep imposing more and more pressure on the councils to do all sorts of different things, not
Right.
just to house the people on their waiting lists. They've got so many other things to fund.
Right, Tiffany, I'm afraid I need to ask you a couple more questions because you're the
Yeah.
woman with the knowledge and I know nothing. So we've established that it does give people hope, but often without a timescale attached. Does the current system punish people who are just not desperate enough?
In a way, yeah.
So if you're honest, Tiffany,
Yeah.
and say, well, there are people without any legs or any arms
Yeah.
who can't, they're the ones that are most desperate. So if you are too honest, to forgive the air quotations, you could be put to the back of the queue.
Yeah.
It seems unfair that everyone should get a fair shake of the whip,
Yeah. In a way, yeah. I understand why the ban system is there. Obviously, those with the higher needs have got the higher need for the properties, and I do think some, as touchy probably as this is going to be to say, but I do think some people try and take the mickey a little bit with their applications, just to try and bump themselves up a little bit, because they know in some certain circumstances they haven't got a chance. It's almost like the housing list is a bit like the lottery. So you put your application in, which is you buying your ticket, and you wait to see whether your ticket comes up.
How much power do housing officers actually have, do you think?
Housing officers, in a sense of gaining somebody a property, not
Yeah.
a massive amount.
Do you think
Not a
it's been
massive amount.
overrun? Because I think until recently, the view was, if I'm extra nice to them, if I grease their
Yeah.
palm, I'll suddenly
Yeah.
get. And you're saying
No.
that actually isn't
No.
the case.
Housing officers are, in my opinion, better for once somebody's in a property.
Right.
They aren't massively behind the system of gaining somebody a property. So,
So how do you think all this, particularly being on this, affect children at school?
oh, massively, because somebody could be on a list. They could be, say, if somebody's in band A and in desperate need for housing, the council, especially like myself, who was homeless at the time. I mean, I was lucky enough that my daughter was too young to be in school, so it didn't really affect us. But a lot of people are told, if you are in significant need for housing and in band A, a lot of people have to take the first property that they're offered. And that could be miles and miles away from where they are already, miles away from schools, miles away from family, and they have to accept that offer. So obviously kids ripped out of school and a routine that they know to somewhere completely new. And that's an unfortunate, it's very sad that that's the reality, and it's one of those things that people have to accept, as wrong as it is.
Hamish, people don't need a place on a list. They need a place to live, right?
Absolutely, yeah. The list is almost irrelevant, but it has to go somewhere, and it's the only way of measuring some aspects of the whole thing. I think it's sad because, as we sort of say, the council's under so much pressure from central government. And as Tiffany said, the housing officer has got as much to do now, particularly when you look at what Burnham wants to actually do when he gets in. He's imposing all these different things. So it's the housing officer that's going to have to be going around doing that and checking out on all of these things by the thousand. When's he going to be able to spend time on actually getting people into the houses, like Tiffany explained? All these challenges just sort of keep getting thrown in at these poor. It's another. It needs to be looked at in a rather different way. Do we care about?
I'm just worried. I'm just worried at the moment. We are in a state of change, politics-wise, particularly in the current party. Burnham swooped in, and without getting overly political, I'm just worried about performative politics rather than actual, real change, and putting all this extra pressure on a housing office, who are then going to be just dealing with numbers rather than people.
Yeah.
I just don't see how that's going to actually alleviate the problem. It's going to make, maybe it'll get more people through it, but I think it's going to leave a lot of people disadvantaged. Tiffany, one last word from you before I pass back to Hamish, just to summarize.
So I think it's a system that is broken. I think it's a system that will continue to be broken, unfortunately. I think it's one of those things that has been going on for so long, it's now stuck.
I mean, you consider yourself one of the lucky people,
yes,
right?
absolutely, yeah. And I've been here now 8 years, and I still don't take it for granted, because I know and I've seen firsthand the amount of families, my own family included, friends in the area that have had the struggles, that are still struggling, and there's no light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, Hamish, would you care to take us home, please?
I sincerely hope that we can actually see some change. And the problem we do have, and I don't want to, but it's so political at the moment. All we're getting is the same people back in again, who've been messing the system up for years anyway. So if you don't change anything, nothing actually changes. If you've got the same minds thinking about it, and you're totally reliant upon those, it does need so much thinking out of the box.
Definition of madness, isn't it? Doing the same thing, expecting different results.
Well, I mean, the thing is, neither Tiffany nor I are expert enough to be able to even suggest something, but they definitely have to put somebody in there, a transition, to help the transitional situation, to communicate with people. This is how it is.
Communication.
And be active and know what's really going on.
Quite.
Because you put politician into somewhere like wherever Mr. Burnham's gone to.
Makerfield.
What's actually going to happen? Is he going to be looking after local interests within the area that he's the representative MP? Or is he going to be looking after government issues? Now, this is the same with so many MPs. I'm not just putting it down to him.
No,
he's got a bigger mess than most. But I think the sad thing is, and I mean, both Tiffany and I think we've come to the same conclusion. If we stick with what we've got, no change will take place.
Yeah.
And we just have to, well, we can do is feel for those who are trapped in yet another of those sticky pools.
Well, there's no let up on the amount of people who are in unfortunate circumstances and need the support. I don't see that diminishing radically, even though undocumented immigrants are at an all-time low at the moment. It's not from there. I think it's just we have a system, as you say, Tiffany, that's fundamentally broken. Hamish, we've got an overload of people needs to be supported, and unless we get new blood or at least new ideas, nothing is going to change. But I say to all of you, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's sortie into the land of the list. Don't forget, tomorrow we've got Ipsy Kind of Magic, followed by Property Quorum, and finally on Friday our bang crash of Cladding Matters. But for all of you, please keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, and of course, do look after your mental health. Until next time, bye-bye.
Bye.